Saludos and salutations, Broncos Country, and welcome to another exciting episode of Broncos Talk. Today, we are going to recap anything and all things that have happened during the bye week. We're also going to talk about the exciting game coming up against the Colts. Also, the Broncos are still Peyton Manning's team. What do we mean by that? I'll gladly tell you. But first, make sure you have your cold drinks, your food warm, because here we go. And welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that I don't know for the very first time, my name is Don Diaz, and I am the owner and host of Broncos Talk. Actually, let me rephrase that. Co-host, because joining me to my right is the man that unfortunately was not able to join us this past Friday on Viva Los Broncos, but he's here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our new third co-host, Bronco Libre. My friend Bronco Libre, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you, Adam?
Oh, man, I just got done eating a quick dinner, so I'm a little bit stuffed. But I'm doing all right. And first of all, let me just say thanks. Thank you so much for coming and joining us here on Broncos Talk with me and Ty, the fantasy guy. As you guys, for those of you that don't know, Ty is still, unfortunately, not ready to come back yet, but we are really waiting for him. We wish him the best, and we cannot wait to have him be the third part of our triangle here in Broncos Country. But before we get to any and all things Broncos Talk, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get a couple of things out of the way. For those of you who are not up here for the first time, please make sure you like and subscribe this show on the Orange and Blue Network. Subscribe, share, comment, and like on all the videos that we have here. We have such great content here on the Orange and Blue Network. I mean, when I tell you guys that Johnny Baki works hard, he literally works hard. I mean, when you see him sitting down, that's probably like the only time he gets to sit down and talk to us. So the rest of the time, he's out here making stuff. He's doing stuff. Shout out to him, and also shout out to Isaiah. Those guys are amazing. But the best thing about today's show is that it's on a simulcast. So we're not only on the Orange and Blue Network, we're also on the MHRT Network. So please make sure you subscribe, share, comment, and like on all of their shows, because they have some great programming over there as well. For those of you that want to follow me on Twitter, you can hit me up at a 6'10" Mexican. You see me right there on the bottom. If you want to follow and hit up my friend Bronco Libre, at Bronco Libre is his Twitter. For business, any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. For our audio listeners, please make sure you like and hit that notification button so you always are up to date with all the episodes as soon as they are for availability. Please make sure you give us 5-star review, screenshot it, and send it to me so that way we know that we are reaching the airwaves outside of Broncos Country, outside of the live perspective. Also, want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, Dubby. Ladies and gentlemen, Dubby is for you. In case you don't know it, they provide such great energy, and not just energy, but they come in so many delicious flavors. So basically, for those that don't know, Dubby is formulated to give you the energy without all the bad stuff. So what is the bad stuff, you might ask? Well, first of all, it was formulated to give you the focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Their formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and nootropics, including the patented neurofactor formula. It's got no calories, no sugar, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial color. Basically, it's the good stuff without all the bad stuff. You know, like you get in coffee and energy drinks. I know in this day and age, we like to put, God, I can't even tell you. I just drink straight up black coffee. Sometimes I do put a little bit of hazelnut in it because that's my favorite flavor. But before, I used to put sugar and God knows how much stuff into my coffee. But Dubby is formulated to give you the energy you need for the day, or just an energy boost to make sure you guys get the energy you deserve without the crash that you would get from energy drinks. So please make sure you go out and order yourself some Dubby. They have so many great flavors. Again, thank you again, and shout out to Dubby for being a sponsor, not just here on Broncos Talk, but throughout the Orange and Blue Network. Wow. I swear, I feel like I work on that every single time, and I don't think I ever do such a good job, Libre. But I know this past week was the bye. So with that being said, Libre, while we were talking in the comments earlier, I couldn't really stop trying to figure out like what it is that we wanted to talk about during the bye week. So I figured that not only would we talk about the Colts game coming up, but just kind of the fact that this is Peyton Manning's team. But before we get into all that, Libre, the one thing I wanted to ask you. Oh, also, by the way, we have Viva los Broncos, which is Libre and our Spanish-speaking show, which premieres every single Friday at 7:00. But my question to you, Libre, I saw the videos of you posting when you were at the stadium for the Browns game. Please tell all of our fans what your experience was for that Monday night. Probably the best Monday Night Football game of the season.
Being at the game and just the environment itself. It's Monday night. It's only one game that's happening, up until this upcoming Monday, where there's going to be two. But it's like having one game, and the whole nation, everyone that loves football is watching the team. But the atmosphere, how electric it is just to be there. We're there doing the tailgate. The tailgate itself was just seeing all of this Bronco fandom itself that's out there right now is so phenomenal. How they're coming back, after a 9-year absent and so forth. Like, it was just such electric that was there, which was awesome. And then they did not disappoint as well for the halftime show. Was probably the best halftime show I've ever seen on any type of primetime we've had, like Sunday nights or any other Monday nights that we've had, or Thursday. They really did a great job this last game for us with the Browns.
I mean, it was amazing. I saw from your perspective in the stadium, I saw a couple people that were driving by outside the stadium, just like the fireworks show, and it was such an amazing thing. And I was like, wow, why couldn't they have done that? Excuse me, why couldn't they have done that when I was there? But
it was the Panthers game. It was the Panthers. That's what I have to say. It's the Panthers.
It's the Panthers, yeah. But we got some people already here in the comments, Libre. Let's get to some of them. David Yunkin. I hope I did not mispronounce your last name. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and for your support. Saying the Broncos will always be part of Peyton Manning. And that is true. For those of you guys, if you guys didn't saw the Manning cast, there was a clip that's pretty good that's hitting the social media rounds, and I think Peyton Manning was naming teams that are going to make the playoffs. And when he got to Denver, he said, "My Broncos." And that, to me, I mean, it's such a heartwarming moment just hearing him say that. Libre, what are your thoughts?
When I remember going back to 2013 when we got him, and literally when I was working at my office, it was right there by Centennial Airport at the time. And we just saw all this media and all that, because we could, out of my building, I could see the airport and just all of the attention going there. And we already knew, saying, oh, Peyton Manning's here. Peyton Manning's about to be here. He's going to sign with the Broncos. But I've always said this since then, all Colts grew up to be Broncos.
Exactly. And before I give my iteration of that, let me just continue finishing through the comments here. D-Rock saying, fellas, how you doing, D-Rock? Thank you so much for joining us and for showing your support. Biggie Bronco saying, what's up, everybody? I didn't know Rey Mysterio Jr. was a Bronco fan.
If you don't know, now you know.
That's what I'm talking about. Viva la raza, Bronco Rob saying, what up, boys? Dreamweaver Jay saying, what up, fellas? Jay, now that you're here, I'm going to do this every single show. Go Bulls. D-Rock's got a question here, Libre, for you. He says, please describe that pass from Knicks to Mims for that 93-yard touchdown.
With that itself, just from my perspective, because I was in the north end zone, that's where my seats are at, and being able to see that play develop right away, me and my son were like, oh my God, look at the play. I go, how did he thread that ball? Because I literally thought that ball was going to be picked or deflected itself, but it just threaded. And then being able to come home and then watch the replay of it, being able to see Mims actually still fumbled it and then caught it. But the way that the stadium erupted after you saw that he completed the pass and was just running down the field, the excitement, how everyone was up on their feet and like in excitement, it was something unreal, which was really awesome to see. And then to see that we have these type of players that can make these big time plays now feels so exciting to watch, especially being in the stadium, because over the last several years, literally I would be going into the stadium and just being already defeated, saying, all right, we're going to be watching a poor Bronco game. We're going to be 3 and outs a lot, especially with Russ. And we're like just sitting there and I'm like, all right, here we are. But being able to see this now and see the fans engaging in the excitement, it just makes me warm and fuzzy all inside. Just it's all over again, 2015 all over again.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it on TV, I had to kind of keep my excitement down because I didn't want to wake up everybody in my house because it was a pretty late game here, and everybody was sleeping. But normally I would have been going bananas, slamming and clapping and yelling and acting like a Yahoo. But I do remember, I think it was in the 2011, the playoff game with Tebow and the Steelers, when he made that pass to Demaryius Thomas. And Demaryius Thomas, God rest his soul. First of all, we miss you, 88. Years. Yeah, 3 years. I was on my birthday. I was eating. I'll never forget it. I was eating at my favorite Mexican restaurant, and I damn near flipped over the table from the excitement. And I had to apologize to everybody because I didn't think the table would be that close to me when I shot up out of my seat. But my point being is that after that game, I really felt like the Broncos would be unstoppable. Tom Brady be damned. And then the following week, they go up to New England, and unfortunately, they fall to the Patriots. So for me, that was a bit of an eye-opener because in my head, I was trying to make a tough decision. Like, I love Tim Tebow. I really liked the energy and the attention he brought to Broncos country, and the fact that he got the boys that far even in the division round, even against Tom Brady, was a feat in itself, especially when the Broncos were literally not even supposed to make it past the Steelers that year, supposedly. So I was just like, hey, if this is going to be my quarterback, then that's going to be my quarterback. But then when Peyton Manning left the Colts because they cut him, and he gave that heartwarming speech, and then it made national attention. Where was he going to go? Where was he going to land? And in my head, I was thinking like, well, wouldn't it be great if he just like came to Denver? But then I'm like, but what are they going to do with with Tim Tebow? Because like, there's no way Tim Tebow sits behind a guy like Peyton Manning. And it was rumored that the Titans were really interested in signing Peyton Manning, but unfortunately, they more than likely didn't have the staff or the weapons that that Peyton Manning was looking for. They didn't have a Demaryius Thomas. They didn't have Julian Thomas, the tight end? Julius Thomas. Thank you. Yeah. So they didn't have these players that would attract that type of attention and bring out the best in Peyton Manning. So when John Elway went out there and just literally reached for that brass ring and got it and brought him to Denver, like, I was kind of torn because, don't get me wrong, I was really happy that the Broncos were able to even get a name like Peyton Manning, and the fact that Peyton was going to come in and he had a lot to prove, especially with the Colts moving on with Andrew Luck, who was supposed to be the next big thing. And getting Peyton Manning's blessing on his way out the door also was a huge sign of sportsmanship from Peyton Manning, because he He could have done a million other things, but instead he gave him his roses. He said, hey, good luck to you, and just rolled out. But especially after they let go of Tebow, and then it became it pretty much became Peyton's team, because there's no way they would have brought him on there without saying, hey, you're gonna have to split hairs or split drives or nothing, because that's not the kind of player that Peyton Manning is. Go ahead, Libre.
Well, you have to think as well, like having Peyton Manning coming in and making a decision. He's come out and said this already. He had other opportunities to go to other teams for a lot more money than what the Broncos actually gave him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was looking at other things other than money-wise. He was like, okay, my kids are still young. What am I going to do? Because I want to have my forever home. And that played a huge factor with what we have here. The school districts where he lives at is very good for kids growing up here in Colorado. And then him just coming over here and understanding that, yes, Colorado does have over 300 days of sun compared to what a lot of people perceive what Denver is, when during the winter months, like starting now or whatever, it's always snow, always gloomy or whatever, which really it's not. We just had a snowstorm earlier this week, and now the snow's already gone. So it's not like it sticks around, it's here. And I think that's what he felt when he came over and it was making a decision for his second team. He goes, what do I want to do, especially for my family? Where do I want to have my forever home? And I think that was also a big factor why he did pick Denver as being his second team itself. And I think I just saw something on one of the news channels here right before we came on. They were talking about Peyton Manning, and he was saying, hey, I came and did my visit. I called Elway on Monday morning, said, hey, I want to be a Bronco. And that's just such a blessing for us as a team, where we've had the success as these quarterbacks that have come in. And we've been spoiled for having these top elite quarterbacks that come in. And then just over the last, 10 years, going through 20 plus quarterbacks, has been very rough. So,
yeah, I mean, going back to what I said, about the type of national attention that Tim Tebow brought before Peyton Manning got here, you take all that, and in just 2012 alone, in Peyton Manning's first season as a Bronco, he took that national attention, and it went straight to the moon. I mean, if I wasn't a fan of Peyton Manning even more before that game, not just because of the fact he became a Bronco, like the fact that, except for like maybe I think his first game he kind of struggled, and then the Monday night comeback against the Chargers, oh my God, I'm pretty sure that made a lot of Broncos fans that night. We got to see what Peyton Manning can do and just the way he runs the offense. We saw a young Chris Harris Jr. I think that was his first year with the team, if I'm not mistaken. Got the game-winning interception, game-ending interception, I should say. But that game alone was such a statement for the Broncos, because Peyton Manning put it out there, like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to run the AFC West. I'm going to run the table, and the playoffs are going to come through Denver, hell and be damned. And as the years went along, like 2013, that season alone was quite possibly the highest scoring season for the offense in Broncos history, if I'm not mistaken, outside of the John Elway eras. But
that season itself was an NFL record season at that point.
Okay.
For that season, it was record-breaking for all things, like passing touchdowns that he did, the yardage that we did, the scores that we did. Yeah, I think those were all record breakers that season for them.
Yeah, it's 55 touchdowns, a record that still stands today. But you know what? And a totally sidebar-related topic, a video that I just saw a little while ago, Libre. I forget the name of the podcast, but Steve Young was on a podcast, and one of the guests, or the host, I should say, asked Steve Young that if it was true that after Elway retired in '98, that in 1999, Steve Young was considered to be the next quarterback for the Broncos, and Steve Young admitted that he turned it down.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Broncos could have had Steve Young as their quarterback following John Elway, which, I mean, anybody following what John Elway had done for the Broncos was going to be, I mean, it was going to be a high ladder to climb, regardless of who you were, just for the simple fact that, you know, there's no Broncos fan in Broncos country that does not know who John Elway is or holds him in a high regard for everything that he did for Denver. So, and a lot of people hold Peyton Manning to that same standard. You know, now a lot of us, especially me, already knew that Peyton Manning was on borrowed time because that neck fusion surgery thing he had while he was in Europe before he came to Denver. They pretty much told him, like, hey, this is only like a temporary thing. It's not going to completely fix the issue. And we saw that in 2014 when we kind of started to see the decline in terms of like physical prowess. But Peyton Manning's mind is still as sharp as ever. If he was an offensive coordinator in the NFL right now, there'd be so many teams literally in trouble right now, and there would be one team that would just be benefiting over just the incredible knowledge he possesses as an offensive minded player. So but I am so grateful that I was able to have been a fan and to see everything that Peyton Manning did while he was here in Denver for those 4 years, and just the records that he set, the records that he broke. It really sucks that Super Bowl 48 didn't go anywhere near as planned. And I know he really holds a lot of that burden on him. I've heard him say it plenty of times. But I wish I could tell him that, hey, look, the Broncos literally were not 100% going into that game.
No.
Okay. They didn't have everything that made them just the unbeatable team that they were during the offseason or during the regular season. I'm sorry. And in my heart of hearts, I truly believe that if it would have been the 49ers that made it instead of the Seahawks, I think the Broncos would have stood a better chance and it wouldn't have been, you know, just a complete blowout. What do you think, Libre?
No, I agree with that as well. And I think it's also like a factor of that very first play going into the game, not them realizing the fanfare of how the Seahawk fans did travel to the Super Bowl there in New York, and you know, and I feel like they also didn't think that was going to happen, and there's just like miscommunication between him and the center, and the ball flying over, and right away they're already up by two, and then having now to kick off to them. And I think that just threw everything off with the whole team. And it was just a trickle effect that whole game, you know, because I still hear it today as well. So from some Seahawks fans, you know, 35-8, you know, whatever, like
43
yeah, well, we beat you by, you know, by 35 points, you know, so it's like, you know what, it is what it is, but hey, we went back to the Super Bowl again and we won. So I'm okay with that. It happened to be, and at that point, that was Russ's second year in the league too. So, so in a way, like
yeah, it could have been any quarterback
right?
in that it didn't have to be Russell Wilson, just happened to be, because technically it was supposed to be Matt Flynn. The Seahawks lucked out getting Russell Wilson in, what was it, the third round, if I'm not mistaken. So he was literally a diamond in the rough. And there's been a lot of those players in the NFL. And Seahawks fans, I don't hate them for it. I totally understand it because I do it to Panthers fans. Anytime I see a Panthers fan, I always bring up Super Bowl, 2015. So I take it just like I give it, pretty much, But it does hurt. It does hurt. But unfortunately, it is what it is. And as we saw the following season in 2014 against the Ravens, I mean, they just, man, they let them, they they went crazy. I'm sorry, it wasn't 2013, 2012. No, the 2013, that first game against the Ravens, because the Ravens had won the year before. Yeah. So, but going into this game, Libre, against the Colts, if you were Peyton Manning and you had played and you had the career he had, would you be as like torn between two teams, or would you think your allegiance would be leaning more towards one over the other, like Peyton leans more over the Broncos instead of the Colts?
Like especially his hometown being here in Denver. I know he still has a lot of connections there with Jim Irsay there in Indianapolis and whatnot. Um, I feel because the game's not in Indy right now, I think he's going to be gearing more towards the Broncos for this, at least for this in particular game. Next year or 2 years from now, if we happen to go into Indy, he might be there. The Colts might say, "Hey, come over, Peyton. We want to do something for you," whatever the case may be, and he will be leaning towards that way. Um, I know they're still part of him. That's where he did majority of his career was there in Indy. That still holds a special place in his heart in his football career. Um, but for me, the way that I'm feeling right now, I feel like because the game is here in Denver, he's going to have more of the Broncos getting in there because I feel the Broncos have more of a chance to do something within the playoffs itself than what the Colts do this year itself.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't blame Peyton Manning. To be honest with you, Libre, I think that something have had to have happened on his way out of Indianapolis. There's just something about Jim Irsay that rubs me the wrong way.
I agree 100% with
and
that as well.
and because if you watch that 2011 Colts season and you see Peyton Manning was on the sidelines, you could see the hurt in his eyes. Like, he really wanted to be out there, and he really did not enjoy seeing his team play the way they did, but it was what it was. And I'm pretty sure that there was some type of deal that was not be able to have been reached, where I don't want to say it's about money, because I don't think Peyton Manning was ever in it for the money.
No.
He just wanted to win. So I don't think it was a financial issue. I think it was more probably about the direction of the team, or maybe Irsay just kind of feeling that maybe Peyton Manning was, damaged goods and wasn't gonna be beneficial for the team anymore. I don't know. That's just speculation.
Well, with that as well, you have to also think that yes, he had 4 surgeries in the matter of like what 16, 17 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to also look at that as well. And he's also, it's a business for Jim Irsay. I'm a business for, I'm not here for feelings or anything like that. And I think with that as well was a big issue, why they had to let him go, because of that. They're like, well, you've just had all these first 4 surgeries. There was a point where he couldn't even grip the football. Even to be able to, after those surgeries that he had on his neck, he couldn't actually grip the football with his right hand to pass it. So I think Irsay was like, all right, I don't know who was the GM at the time, but they're talking and say, hey, he can't even grip it. Let's cut our losses now. We have Andrew Luck coming up. We have the next QB of our future, and I think it's just time to get us clear from him. Let's just go ahead and go with younger. So I believe that 100%. And of course, how Peyton Manning and his passion for the game, he goes, nobody's going to tell me basically how to end my career. I'm going to do that on my own. And I want to go out there and prove it. And I'm glad that he chose Denver to do that with, because he brought a lot of excitement football here to Denver for us.
Yeah, and he brought a lot of fans. I believe that Peyton Manning brought just so much more fans, whether it was from Indy or because I've also met people from all walks of life from different teams that just became Broncos fans just for the simple fact that they love Peyton Manning. They respected him, everything he did in Indianapolis, and they also felt the same way that, he was unjustifiably done wrong. So whether it was Peyton's decision to leave or whether it was the Colts' decision to officially cut him as the record stands today, like, I'm just so appreciative of just having him in the building in Denver this coming Sunday, and just him knowing that he's rooting for the orange and blue and not the opposing team. So with that being said, Libre, let's get into the topic of the game coming up. The Broncos are coming off of a bye. They're getting some much needed rest and some good healing players. The big news that's rocking Broncos country right now, Libre, is the fact that cornerback Riley Moss is more than likely going to be, is doubtful if I'm not mistaken. He's more than likely not going to play this week. And after we saw what happened with Levi Wallace, how concerned are you for whoever has to step up and fill that role, which I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Wallace, but do you feel that the Broncos secondary is a bit of a liability until Riley Moss comes back?
We are getting Jones back. So I think that's going to help out a lot, especially at that safety position itself, to being able to cover that. But if Wallace is in there, yes, it's very concerning. It doesn't matter who I think the wide receiver is. Just reviewing that Browns game again last week, and he was getting beat off. He was just being beat off of the line itself, and was already behind the whoever the receiver was. Unfortunately, the times that he did get beat, it was Jerry Jeudy when he was beating him down the field. So we do have a concern if Levi Wallace is in there. I feel like Levi Wallace should just be on special teams. That's just my opinion itself. But being able to see that, I don't think he has the speed to keep up with these wide receivers that are here, the elite of, the best of the best and what they do. And it's concerning. But I feel like with Jones being back now, I think that's going to be helping out with maybe having the coverage on top so that we do have Levi Wallace underneath and we have Jones on top, so that it shouldn't be a big issue as it was when we were playing Cleveland on Monday night.
No, I totally agree. And when I saw those highlights, and the highlight that still like it bugged me was when it was the zero blitz, the long play after the 93 play that the Broncos gave up. Like, if I was Levi Wallace and it's zero blitz, how the hell are you not running with Jeudy, knowing there is nobody there, and you wait till the last second for the man to blow past you, and then all of a sudden chase him? Like, there is no way that there would somebody be that bad and that clueless and let a guy like Jerry Jeudy just literally take the top off and just run amok. And there were a lot of people that were going into this game or after the game saying that, it should have been Patrick Surtain. Like, even if it was PS2 and you got him on Jeudy, which he only gave him 20 yards, the Browns had other receivers that maybe they may have not gotten big plays like Jeudy did, but they were able to break away and get the coverage that they needed and make the plays they needed. So that's still a liability on its own. So to me, it is a little bit concerning. I know the Broncos did sign somebody off of waivers, if I'm not mistaken, or a free agent or something like that. He used to play for the Lions. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But whatever needs to be done, if Riley Moss is definitely not going to play this week, then Vance Joseph needs to scheme up a play where if that part of the end zone, if that part of the secondary is going to be a liability, then yes, safeties are going to have to help out. It's either going to be Brandon Jones or it's going to be PJ Locke. Like, they have to give that guy help, especially if it's going to be somebody who hasn't played as a Bronco yet, because they have to get acclimated to the way the Vance Joseph defense works. And it might take a couple of plays. It might take a couple of drives. Hell, it might be the second half for all we know. But whatever it is that needs to be done, it needs to be fixed, because this is a must-win game for the Broncos, Libre. Yes, we have so many teams that are chasing us in terms of, because they want that playoff spot. And what the Broncos cannot do, especially right now, is they cannot get comfortable. They cannot take their foot off the pedal. It's got to be pedal down all the way to the playoffs. And as I see now, we have a comment here by our boss, Johnny Mahaibaki. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us and for showing your support. He says, I would start Chris Abrams drain for the majority of the long field situations and put Wallace in during red zone play. I'm sorry, I don't want to see Wallace do anything outside special teams. I know that there's been a couple of people that were advocating for him, that he's more of a zone player instead of coverage or whatever. But unfortunately, I think that man has burnt his bridge personally in Broncos country. And just seeing his name out there outside of a special team setting is just so upsetting for me. And the fact that the Broncos defense was pretty much ridiculed by a lot of people last week because they were supposed to be one of the top 5 defenses, and you cannot be a top 5 defense giving up 500 something yards. Yes, the Broncos did get the win, and yes, the Broncos got to a very, very awesome and crucial interception. Pick sixes, that, mind you, by Nick Bonito and what's the Jaquan McMillan. So, but the Broncos defense can't be giving up that type of yardage and always expect for a pick six to bail them out, you know. D-Rock also saying postseason is very much in our reality because it's in our hands. Now, playoff seeding will need some help from others, but getting into the playoffs is up to us. Gotta love it, Mile High Country. And you're right, D-Rock. The playoffs are a completely different animal, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't stress enough how much I've been saying this to everybody that's asked me about the Broncos and playoffs. I said it's kind of hard to talk about playoffs right now because unless you're like the number one seed, then you really don't have you can't really game plan because the seeding is going to keep changing every single week. So until you find a seeding where it doesn't matter if your team wins or loses, then you can't really plan for it because then you won't know how to plan with your opponent. So the Broncos could still be playing for seeding by week 18. They could secure a spot by week 17. You know, we don't officially know yet. So it's kind of hard to talk about strategy and planning at this point in time, just for the simple fact that, like I said, there are a lot of teams that are chasing the Broncos, and the Broncos have to try to stay atop as high as they can because the pecking order is going to change a lot. And the Colts are one of those teams that are chasing us, Libre. They're trying to stay relevant. I'm trying to figure who they play. I think they played the Jets before their bye week. And Richardson, while he might not be like the best quarterback, he does have a deep, a pretty cannon for an arm, and he can throw the ball downfield. But I will say, Libre, seeing Nick Bonito get that pick six 2 weeks ago against the Browns was such an amazing thing. So what I want to ask you, Libre, is what do you think how would you rate our pass rush against that Colts offensive line?
You know, I feel like Quentin Nelson is one of the top guards there in the league itself. But I feel, especially having Bonito and Jonathan Cooper on the outsides, we're going to be able to get to him. But it's also going to be because he is a running quarterback. We're going to need to have our linebackers come in here and actually make sure that they fill up that middle. So that's going to be a huge key, especially with him, because I feel like he's also going to be the first run. He's going to let me run first before let me trying to pass. Mm-hmm. So if we can contain him and do that, I think our defense will just take care of itself. So in the long run, if we can do that up front, passing, if we are going to have Levi Wallace as a corner, it shouldn't matter much. But, again, you never know. Things happen or whatnot. They happen to scheme it just perfectly on a blitz or whatever. But it's something that we have to key on first, I think, especially with Richardson being that running quarterback, because he's going to be that let me run first before I try passing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I don't know if maybe you can correct me on this, Libre, but when I was watching Zach Allen against the Browns, he didn't look like he was at 100%. On some of his pass rushes, he couldn't really put his weight down, so he couldn't really get, because I've seen that even when Zach Allen in previous games, even when he was dead tired, that man would out-tire the guard or the center, whoever was blocking him, before he would get tired. And I felt that Zach Allen was not at 100%, so the interior pass rush was not 100% there. And you could see it in him. And then when he kind of got hurt on that one play, even though it wasn't his ankle, I think he got rolled up, if I'm not mistaken. But that was a concern to me, because I was sitting there looking at it, I was like, this is not the Zach Allen that I know. Usually he's making Jameis Winston or the quarterback, whoever it be, either run left or run right, or risk getting sacked or throw the ball or do something. And unfortunately, Jameis Winston in that game had a little bit too much time to throw in the pocket. So that's something you can't do against Anthony Richardson. And I'm really hoping that the week off has given Zach Allen plenty of time and plenty of rest. So I hope he's good and raring to go. And but switching sides for really quick, Bo Nix, I think he played a really good game against the Browns. The only thing, and I talked about this last week here on the show, was the only thing that really I didn't agree with was that Hail Mary throw. It felt like, it really wasn't necessary. I know what he was trying to do. Maybe he was trying to get, a flag or whatever, but he was doing such a good job at just kind of, killing the clock and throwing the ball here and there, not really putting it in any type of danger. So, my question to you, Libre, is from the Browns game, like, was there something that you saw out of Bo Nix that kind of made that you really liked, or something that you feel that was unnecessary?
I love that he's actually throwing the ball down the field. Because we've seen it before where he's done it. We've gotten good receptions from it and so forth. I love him having that confidence to say, "Hey, I'm going to still throw this up." Yes, it just happened he got picked this one time, but I love actually seeing that from him, and especially being a rookie quarterback in the league itself, being able to see that, and he has this type of confidence is just gives me more excitement for him. Yes, he didn't have the best game itself, but he did enough for us to win the game. Yes, our defense did have to help us out with a couple of pick sixes for it, but that's what it is. It's not a solo guy that's going to be doing the winning the game. It's a team effort, and that's what you saw from this game was a complete team effort, winning it, scoring on both sides of the ball, whatever the case may be. But Bo Nix is going to be he's going to be a problem for the AFC West for over a decade. So, which I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, his first interception, I don't blame him. It was just an unfortunate, of all the places the ball could have went, I wish it would have gone left, right, down, but unfortunately it went straight up. And the ironic thing, it was by Denzel Ward, and then the second interception was made by Denzel Ward too. So I do agree to some degree with your statement, Libre, about, I love when Bo Nix throws the ball too. But again, there's a time and a place for everything, So while I understand that Bo Nix was probably trying to do, air out the ball, but when the game was that close. Now, if it was like, if the Broncos were up like 10, 14, or 21 or whatever, then okay, a totally different story. But the fact that the Broncos defense was literally getting carved up on the Levi Wallace side of the field, like that was something that, like I said, it wasn't, it was something that, usually we've seen in this past season, whenever the Broncos secondary struggled in the first half, outside of the Ravens game, in the second half, they would, bunch up and they would fix it, and then it wouldn't happen anymore. So, but unfortunately this time, not having Riley Moss on that opposite side of the field just shows how important and detrimental he is to this defense. So, with Bo Nix, I'm really hoping that he's learning a lot faster than people are giving him credit for, because his rookie season and all the, hey, he's only a rookie, we're starting to run out of that. So whatever it is that he needs to do to get it out of the way, it needs to be done within the next 4 weeks, because so far I think he's doing a fantastic job. He's way ahead of schedule. And the fact that he's shutting up a whole bunch of people who doubted him literally before he even put on a hat and grabbed his jersey from Roger Goodell is just a testament to the type of energy, emotion, and just the vibe that he brings to Broncos country. And it puts the Broncos up against anybody. And even when they lose to a team like the Ravens, or, those first two ugly losses against the Steelers and the Seahawks, it's like, hey, you better hope we don't meet again, because it is not going to be the same story. So with the Colts, what I am hoping is that the Colts take it for granted that they think that they could just come into Mile High, first of all, and just kind of take advantage of the Broncos. And I really do hope that Denver makes an example out of them. Okay, because I feel like the Colts have kind of gotten by with their last couple of games before their bye. They haven't exactly been looking like world beaters, and I don't think that they have played a team as talented as what Denver has on our side of the field.
I agree with that 100%. And I don't feel like they've played. And again, I guess you could say this every week with the teams. They haven't played a defense like the Broncos, itself. So being able to, at the time, being the number one or number three defense in the whole league, they haven't seen anybody like us. Even I feel like if Riley Moss is not going to be in there or whatnot, it's still, he's not the only guy out there. There's still the PS2. We still have the line. they still have to plan for that as well. And there's just so many people that are on our defense that are that good that you can't plan for everyone. You can only do so much for this. But I feel like they, they also have the same bye week we did, so they have the same amount of rest, the same amount of thing. So when was it? I think it was even last year after our bye week. We just came back and we just dominated that game right after the bye week itself. And I was just actually again on the news that they're saying Sean Payton is 10-6 after the bye week in his career. It's mediocre, but it's still he has a winning record. He gets his team ready to play, to come out and say, all right, let's go in there. We're going to smash them mouth. We've been rested. Let's just get out there and play some ball.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And what the Broncos cannot do is they cannot, like, I want them to win, but I think this has to be a statement win. So if the Broncos like squeak by with like a field goal or, anything less of just kind of looking like a hungry team coming off of a bye is what I'm trying to say. Because again, they need to put it out there that the Broncos are here to play, that they're not afraid to play anybody in the playoffs coming, whether it's Buffalo or Houston or Pittsburgh. I mean, it doesn't matter. You line whoever comes to either our house or we have to go play them in their field come playoff time, they're going to come in and kick some ass. That's literally the statement the Broncos have to make going forward with these last 4 games. They do have I really don't see the Colts as much of a tough test. They're definitely a team that can be a trap game. I'm not going to lie to you, especially if Richardson has a better day than expected, or if Joe Flacco gets switched in and then, the Broncos didn't prep for Joe Flacco, and then it's like a revenge game. I mean, that can go either way, but I haven't heard anything about Joe Flacco starting. I don't think he will. He'll continue to remain the backup quarterback for the Colts. But
yeah,
they do have a tough game coming up against the Chargers the following week. And then week 17 is going to be against Cincinnati, a team that's really looking, they're trying to stay alive. And then the week 18 Chiefs game, it's starting to look more and more like an early preseason game for them. And that should be an easy win for Denver, especially if they're playing for seeding and they play most of their starters that week. But again, but going back to this week, the only thing that really worries me about the Colts is Jonathan Taylor, because big name running backs, unfortunately, have been an Achilles heel for Denver. We saw what Derrick Henry did to our defense. But the running game for Denver, like Javonte Williams, for those of you guys that saw the Nothing Rhymes with yesterday with Johnny Baki and Jay Weaver, like they're pretty much done with Javonte Williams. and I'm pretty much at that point too. I think McLaughlin and Estime are more than likely going to be the future for Denver unless they go and sign a big name running back or they get one in the draft. But other than that, I think we can all agree that we're moving on from him. LSDT TV saying, "Go Broncos." Ellis, thank you so much for showing your support and for showing your love here. Thank you so much for watching. D-Rock saying, "Has drafting Bo Himothy Nix saved George Payton from the guillotine?" Yeah. I would like to think so. Yeah, and see, and this is something that I've also said to other people, mostly my Uber passengers, because a lot of people give George Payton a lot of crap for the whole Russell Wilson thing, but I always try to look at it at the opposite way, on the bright side. I would I'm not mad for George Payton going after Russell Wilson, because and anybody in Broncos country that tells you that they weren't excited to hear Russell Wilson was a Bronco is a damn lie. Okay, we were all on that hype train. We were all on Let's Ride. We were all on like, hey, it's going to be 2-3 Super Bowls in Denver. We were all on that. Okay, so you have to remember that his intent was to get Aaron Rodgers, and that fell through. And Russell Wilson was the consolation prize. Now, you guys have seen everything that Aaron Rodgers has done with the Jets. So, would you rather have, Libre, everything that we've endured with Russell Wilson, even and including the fact that the Broncos are paying him a crap ton of money to go be a star player in Pittsburgh, and looking like he's going to be there again next year, or Would you rather go through everything that the Jets have been through with Aaron Rodgers, but in orange and blue colors?
During the draft a couple of years ago, I was at the Breckenridge brewery for the draft, and rumors started to come out that Rodgers was going to be coming over when we had just got Nathaniel Hackett, and we're like, you know what, like, these guys know each other, it's fine. But I was telling my buddies there at the time, I was like, you know what, I don't want Rodgers. He comes with too many problems. And he's too old at the time. I was like, you know what? He's still old. I go, I don't feel like this is going to be a fit with us. Even though we have Nathaniel Hackett, it's his offensive coordinator there in Green Bay. He's not going to do anything here in Denver with us. I don't feel like that's a good fit. And of course, other people were like, no, we need Aaron. We need to bring Aaron. That's going to change everything. It's a new scenery, do all that, and the stuff that he does. Being able to see what has transpired over the last 2 years, I'm glad that we never picked him up, because I don't want to go through that, because then it's just like our revolving door of QBs that we've had over the last, at that time it was like, what, 7 years, 6 years. I was like, we can't do that. I go, yes, he's a big name. That's what we want, that he's proven. But for me, I thought he just came with too much problems. And you could see that now. He's already talking about, he doesn't even know what he's going to do for next year.
Yeah. Also, let me remind people that I'm willing to bet, this isn't a known fact, this is just my personal opinion, that I'm pretty sure it wasn't George Payton's idea to let Russell Wilson go. That felt like a move that came from the people above him. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So if it was up to George Payton and the owners didn't have a hand in it, Russell Wilson would still be our quarterback and Bo Nix would be holding a clipboard right about now. Okay.
Well, you have to know this as well, that the Walter Penner Group itself, they're Walmart. So they have all this money. So they're like, you know what? We don't care. Let's get him out. We'll pay him. We'll get whatever we need to do to get him out of here. Let's just do it. And I agree with you 100% that it wasn't Peyton's choice to do that. He probably was fighting to keep him. He's like, you know what? I still believe in him. Let's keep him in there. And they're like, nope, let's get him out. We need to take care of this right away.
And again, I'll say it again because I feel like I say this every week. Yes, Russell Wilson did have some bad games. He should have won that game against Houston last year. He definitely should have won that game against New England. That was the heartbreaker. That was the nail in the coffin that sent us out of the playoff contention. But when I tell you guys, when I was at that Raiders game, week 18, and if you look on my Twitter, at a 6'10" Mexican, by the way, there's a super zoomed picture that I took of Russell Wilson, literally the last day of him wearing a Broncos uniform. And he just wanted to go out there and play, but unfortunately that whole injury rule and all the drama that followed kept him off the field. And instead we were left with whatever you want to call that. We'd seen Jarrett Stidham. So we're right now at a point, to answer your question, D-Rock, where George Payton definitely turned off the fire underneath his seat, because there are other GMs out there whose seat is so much on fire that they're starting to get like third-degree burns. I'll give you a perfect example. Ryan Pace here Poles. Sorry, I keep saying Pace. Poles, the GM for the Bears. I mean, think of all the picks that the Bears have had, and they only spent it on one offensive lineman, Darnell Wright, and he has been absolute garbage. And they went out and got Caleb Williams last year. They could have had Joe Alt, and they didn't get any protection. And Caleb Williams, yes, he's had some flashes, but he has gotten sacked more than any quarterback in the league this year. And Poles is a former offensive lineman. So you would think that a guy with that type of mentality would understand or know the importance of having a really good offensive line, because it doesn't matter if you're Caleb Williams as a rookie or you're a veteran like Patrick Mahomes. We've seen what Patrick Mahomes is like when he doesn't have an offensive line. Just go ask Tampa Bay. So the Bears have just so much, they have more questions than answers. They don't have a head coach. They don't have an offensive coordinator. They're literally just flying off the seat of their pants, and they'll be lucky to make it towards the end of the season without more injuries than not. So whatever George Payton is doing, it's working. He still has a lot of work to do because he still has to find a whole bunch of other key players. He still has to negotiate some contracts because we are still in the books for the Russell Wilson contract next year. It's not as much money as this year. So hopefully he'll have more money around to play with and attract other free agents. So that's why these next 4 games, Libre, are so important and detrimental because especially the playoff push, because it is going to set the bar for next year. If the Broncos do not make a Super Bowl and they're eliminated early, then they have to start working for the next year. They have to start figuring out who stays, who goes, moving money around, who gets contract extensions, all that good stuff, and start preparing for 2025 while the others are still, in 2024. So that's a big advantage for Denver, and it's up to Peyton to keep going because, yes, he's had some home run hits, and yes, he's had some misses, but the fact that we can say he's had more hits than misses, I think, is very important and very, very happy to say, for me, anyways. What are your thoughts, Libre?
No, absolutely. Being able to see, just because I think I have a little bit more access with the Broncos here, being here in Denver. You don't hear his name, and that's a key factor as well. That they're doing a good job, because once they're not doing a good job, and we heard it a lot, especially last year. We're like, what was George Payton thinking? Like, why did he sign Russell to this huge contract before even playing a single down here in Colorado? Why would we give him that much money? I get why they did it at the time, but you're wanting to give your QB that security, saying, hey, we're behind you 100%. We know that you haven't played a single down, but you're our future. You're our future here in Denver. But not being able to hear his name through the media outlets or anything like that, I feel like he has turned that burner down so far that it's non-existent, especially for this year, the way that we were able to perform, especially Bo Nix. I think that's really part of why he was able to do that itself.
So before we get into our next segment, Libre, just to kind of wrap this up, Colts, Broncos. If I know some people like to predict final scores, so it's only fitting that we go with that. So I'm going to say Broncos win 30-14.
Okay. I see us, right about there. I'm close to that. I'm going to say 31-17.
Oh, that's a lot more. I do picture like a garbage touchdown. Again, Jonathan Taylor does worry me, but I think that the Broncos do just enough to kind of keep them off, from getting hot, and then just like some fourth quarter, last minute, just burn out the clock type of stuff. So moving on to our next segment, I don't know if you're familiar with this part of the show, Libre, but it's basically called Broncos Talk OT. So basically, it's like an overtime part of the show where I like to kind of go, at least during the football season, I like to kind of go over every single game with the folks at home. So we're just going to go down the list, from the Thursday game all the way to the Monday night games. If you have any, if you want to give out any opinions about the matchup and who you think is going to win, okay. We can bounce off each other. So thank you so much also for joining me here tonight. Appreciate it. So for the Thursday night game tomorrow, we have the 7-6 LA Rams against the 6-7 San Francisco 49ers. So the Niners are coming off of a really big win off of the Bears. They made that look pretty easy, to be honest with you. But the Rams are also this is going to be a really great game. I mean, division games on Thursday night have been really, really close. But I think that the Rams coming off of that big win over the Bills kind of oversees the win that the 49ers had over the Bears, because the Bears, they had so many problems. So the Niners were just there to take advantage of it. I don't think the 49ers are still up to par to say like, hey, we're making a turnaround. They still have they have more money in injuries than probably any team, if I'm not mistaken. But before I turn it over to you, I think Matt Stafford is in for another big game. Probably not as big as what we saw last week, but big enough where they can be runners for the division. So I'm going to say Rams on this one. What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. I feel that the Rams are headed in the right direction for the NFC West. And then especially with CMC out, I think that's really where it hurt them the most, especially this year. And then, him coming back out and then him injuring himself in that snow game. Uh, it's not it's not the same team with him. And then also is what's going on with Brock Purdy? How is his shoulder doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's another good question that's going to be happening, especially there. They're not that healthy right now. So I feel like they're not, like, especially with 4 weeks to go in the season, they might be a team as well that might be shutting it down because they feel like they're not going to be there, even though they're kind of close.
I wholeheartedly agree. Sunday games. Our first Sunday game here, Libre, is the Dallas Cowboys at 5-8 versus the 3-10 Carolina Panthers. Whatever momentum that the Panthers seem to have had going up to the game last week, they kind of seem to have lost it. But I do feel like there have been strides that they're making with Bryce Young. I mean, he's still the better option over Andy Dalton. He always has. I still think that Dave Canales, their head coach, really messed up pulling him out early because they lost just so much precious time in seeing on what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, where they can address to fix those things in the offseason, in terms of getting him weapons and, even a coaching change or what have you. So I feel like they missed out. But the Cowboys, I mean, if you saw them playing Springfield, I mean, Homer Simpson looked like a better quarterback than Cooper Rush a couple of
I
those
was going to
times.
say the same thing as well.
But before I turn it over to you, I'm just going to say that I think this is a trap game. I'm going to pick the Panthers. I think the Panthers win this one just for the simple fact that, the Cowboys, Dowdle is a pretty good running back, but I still think they should have won that game against Cincinnati, and they dropped the ball big time. So if they can't get over a team like Cincinnati, then again, that game against the Giants looked like a fluke win, and the game against Washington, that was a game they should have lost, but they somehow won. So I'm going to say that the Panthers win that game.
No, and then just going off of that, again, I go back to the divisional games. So divisional games are those ones that are really hard to win, to figure out if they're going to win or lose, just because they play each other so much. But with this in particular game this Sunday, I'm picking the Panthers as well. I don't think the Cowboys have what it takes, especially with Rush being in there, to do it. He's not that elite quarterback. He's a good backup when you need him for a week, maybe two, not for the amount of time that he's been in there right now.
Yeah. By the way, let me just quickly say before we move on to the next game, Micah Parsons, that was really bad sportsmanship. Like I get it. You lost. That was a game you should have won. I feel your frustration. I get all that. But what you cannot do is you cannot just, because you not only make yourself look bad, you make your team look bad. Because if it would have been the other way around and you would have won that game and somebody did to you, let's say Jamar Chase walked off the field, like, you wouldn't like that either. Like, hey, man, you go out there and you say, congrats, give them hell. You do all that stuff. It's just how sports is. And for you to just walk off like that, like, dude, like, come on, man. That just wasn't cool. That didn't sit right with me. The Chiefs at 12-1 against the Cleveland Browns, who are 3-10. Now the Browns are out of playoff contention, Libre. So I really thought that they were going to sweep the Steelers last week, but as we saw, they really got lucky when they faced them the first time in the snow, because we saw what the Browns were without heavy snow coming in, and Russell Wilson and the Steelers made them pay, and they evened up that series. They only had one touchdown drive, if I'm not mistaken, and that was just like the one where he threw to Jerry Jeudy. And I told a lot of people, hey, don't get fooled by the Jerry Jeudy you saw against the Broncos. That's not the same Jeudy you're going to see every week. And I was right. He was only held. Don't get me wrong. Judy's a good player, but he's not going to be a 3 touchdown, 300 yards or whatever, what he was doing before. But I think the Chiefs they're still going to be playing close. Now, this could also be a trap game, though, because the Browns are going to be playing and they're going to be running plays and doing a whole bunch of stuff, because it really doesn't matter. They're not playing for a playoff. And the Chiefs defense has been such a liability here, Libre. And I really hate picking division teams. So in our division anyway. So I'm going to say that the Browns win this game. I think that Jameis Winston bounces back, and Jerry Jeudy might not have a big day, but he could be the game-winning touchdown, him or Chubb.
And I agree with that 100%. You know, I'm watching Hard Knocks as well right now, and with with them being able to put on there, Shelby Harris literally said on yesterday's episode, saying, "Hey, we might be out of this, but you know what? Teams are now looking at you to see if they want to continue to have you on the team, or you're putting yourself film for someone else, for another team out there. We just need to go out there and play our hardest and put good film out there, because you never know that this might be your last time that you're ever playing, because there might be a team that you're on now that say, you know what, we're going to go to a different direction. We might go younger. We might do this, but you have to remember there's other teams that are actually watching these games itself. So with that being said, I feel with what the Browns are going to be able to do is, yes, they're going to go in there, they're going to play, because they're like Jameis Winston this is his 1 year there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he only has it. So they're going to go out there, they're going to play hard. And I feel that this is the week now that KC has got the division, they're not going to play as hard these last 4 weeks, and they can care less and so forth. They're just going to try to just do enough that they're going to be ahead of Buffalo just for that number 1 spot. But again, if these teams can catch them in the right moments here in these last 4 weeks, and we're one of those teams, that they are going to falter, and hopefully that they do fall to number 2 and whatnot. But yes,
Right.
I'm going to go with the Browns this weekend.
All right. Miami Dolphins at 6-7 at the Houston Texans, who are 8-5. You know what? Maybe the bye can do something for CJ Stroud in that offense, but I got to tell you, when I picked CJ Stroud in my fantasy draft in the 4th round, I thought I was getting him as a steal. And so far, he's been anything but. He's been a huge bust for me. And I don't know what's going on. Like, I thought that we would see him be another MVP caliber player, you know. So it's really been disappointing. I know he doesn't have Stephon Diggs, but even when Stephon Diggs was on the field, he still looked pretty much like mid tier, if I'm being honest. And I don't see the Texans defense is a little banged up. Hopefully that week off gave them some much needed rest. But the Dolphins with Tua, I mean, that offense is just running on all cylinders, and they're pretty much hard to stop unless they're playing in cold weather. It's the only way you can cool them off. So I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win that game. I think that Tua and Achane are just going to have another big game against the Texans. What do you think?
You know, the way I look at it, it's the sophomore slump. You've just given, you know, the teams here with any good defensive coordinator is going to do is they have a full year of film on you. They're going to be able to come out there, study it, see what you're doing. And I feel that that's what happening to CJ Stroud, because I picked him in the 5th round this year in my fantasy. But I also picked up Bo Nix. So for the first several weeks, like, I had CJ in there. I was like, man, he is not doing that good. And I just said, you know what, let me just throw in Nix. And that was one of the first games that Nix had. It was just right after the Jets game too. I was like, you know what, I know this is a hard decision that we just had his worst outing as a QB out there. But you know what, I'm just making this switch because I feel CJ is not doing it for me. And it was the best decision I made so far, because it has helped me throughout this whole the whole year so far in my fantasy, and I'm in the playoffs, number 3 overall, so which is nice.
Yeah, I made the playoffs too. So I've never won one. I've only been to the finals once. So crossing my fingers. You know, shout out to all my boys out there in the playoffs. I love you guys, but I'm coming to kick some ass.
There you go. And then my decision for this week, I think Miami's going to do it, just because I agree with everything that you said with the matchup and what was going on. But yes, I do think Miami is going to take over.
Okay. The Jets of New York at the Jacksonville Jaguars, 3-10, both apiece. If the Jets lose to Jacksonville, I mean, they may as well just start bringing in people that they want to keep for next year, because I mean, this is a game that Aaron Rodgers should and company playing all their starters, they should run over Jacksonville. I really this isn't even much to talk about. I will say I'm very disappointed in the Jets organization. And to quote Shannon Sharp, everybody at that Jets office owes Zach Wilson an apology. So I'm going to pick the Jets to win that game. What do you think, Libre?
No, I agree as well. I think the Jets should win that, especially now that he has Aaron Rodgers has his quarterback or his wide receiver, Devontae. I feel like they should be able to be the two there that's going to be able to put up points against this lackluster defense there in Jacksonville, and then with with the quarterback being out, they don't see anything that the Jaguars can do, especially with the Jets. But yeah, like I mentioned, if they somehow lose to Jacksonville, it's a selling party at that point. Just put in people, put in rookies, put in stuff to get some playing time so they can put film together to see what they can work off in the offseason.
Agreed. Washington Commanders at 8-5 at the New Orleans Saints 5-8. I will say that the New Orleans Saints are probably even more beat up than they were when they faced Denver. They have so many more injuries. Some players are definitely out. Derek Carr is not going to play in this game, so they're literally right back to square one where they were against when they played Denver. The Commanders should literally steamroll the Saints. I'm not even going to spend this much time on it because we still got a couple more games to go, so I'm just going to say the Commanders.
Same. I'm picking the Commanders as well. Jaden Daniels will do a good number on them.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next game, I just want to say I hope they run the ball more than throw, so Bo Nix can stay leader in for the offensive rookie of the year. The Baltimore Ravens at 8-5 against the New York Giants at 2-11. Again, this should be the Ravens all day. They should steamroll the Giants. I will say I am pretty disappointed in the fact that Drew Lock hasn't been a big improvement over what the latter was. I thought he should have won. He should have steamrolled the Cowboys. And he should have shown them that he was worth all the money that they got in free agency. But unfortunately, he hasn't. Like, he literally stumbled his way through that Saints game last week. But I'm going to pick the Ravens to win this one pretty easy.
Yes, I agree with you 100% on that. Actually, there's a thing that came out today with Drew Lock, with the head coach saying that he was in a boot. And he will be unlikely. Yeah, so it might be where he's unlikely to go on Sunday for the Ravens game.
Back to the Tommy DeVito game then.
Yep, that's exactly what I think what's going to happen, yeah.
Yeah. The Cincinnati Bengals at 5-8 against the Titans at 3-10. The Titans are officially also eliminated from playoff contention. So the Bengals are probably should have another field day. If they can do what they did against the Cowboys, but better in terms of the Bengals defense not giving up plays so wholeheartedly, then they should be able to win that one. As much as I want to pick the Titans to win, I wouldn't be mad if they did, if this was a trap game. But unfortunately, I'm going to pick common sense and telling me to go with the Bengals. So I'm going to pick the Bengals on that one.
I agree with everything. I picked the Bengals.
The New England Patriots at 3-10 against the Arizona Cardinals, who are 6-7. I don't know what's going on with the Cardinals, Libre. They should have been definitely like with MHJ. I mean, they were projected to win so many games, and they have just been so disappointing. They got swept by Seattle in their division, and now they're going up against Drake May, who's coming off of a week's rest. And as much as I want to pick the Cardinals, I don't think I can. I think I'm going to pick New England on this one just for the simple fact that I think Drake May and his weapons are playing better than Kyler Murray, and his weapons not named Trey McBride.
So is the game in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. For me, I think that makes a factor there. I think Arizona could win this game. I think they do bounce back. And I watched Trey McBride a lot here in Fort Collins when he was here. And I think he's going to be the factor of this game itself.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have Marvin Mims on my fantasy team, but I think Trey McBride will be like the factor for this game.
Yeah. So you're picking the Cardinals?
Yep, picking the Cardinals.
Oh, finally we disagree. The Indianapolis Colts at 6-7 we already talked to Broncos. Go Broncos. Buffalo Bills at 10-3 at the Detroit Lions at 12-1. This is gonna be such a great game, Libre. I've been staring at this matchup for God knows how long today, and I, for one, I don't think I can pick a clear-cut winner, but I mean, the Bills are definitely going to be coming in hot after losing to the Rams, a team that they should have beaten on paper. But the Lions, I mean, the Lions have just been, they're playing for number one seeding. Even with their banged up defense, that offense, I mean, as much as I want to pick Buffalo, I'm going to go with the Lions. I really do hope that Von Miller can be a big difference. But I mean, the Lions, oh God, man, they're dangerous, man, and they're kicking ass.
Absolutely. No, they are. They're very dangerous. But I also feel like with the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, I feel like he's going to be the clear-cut MVP of the league. And with the amount of injuries that they have on the defense, I feel like he's going to, with having really no true weapon on the offensive side, I feel like he's going to carve them up all afternoon long. And I'm actually going to take Buffalo to win this game. And it helps us out. It helps us out as well for that seeding wise. Say if they happen to be there at the end, and KC and Buffalo are there neck and neck for that number one spot, and if we can somehow get Buffalo to get that number one spot and KC to that number two spot itself, I would love to play KC as if we stay in that seventh seed, being the number two and going into KC, and I don't fear KC at all itself. So, and that's kind of what I'm trying to manifest right now, is getting that done so that can happen. Because going into Buffalo, yes, we went into Buffalo last year off of our bye week and we won. But going into the playoffs like that, I think it's going to be a little bit harder. But either way, I feel like we will still put up a great game. But my final decision, Buffalo Bills over the Lions this weekend.
All right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the LA Chargers. Bucks at 7-6 and the Chargers at 8-5. I think the Buccaneers have been playing some really good football. And of course, the Chargers are the Chargers. Justin Herbert without McConkey looks so lost last week. Their running game is pretty much up there with Denver's. It's pretty much obsolete. It's not there. And the Chargers defense, while it can be good, they tire out easily. And when they cannot carry the burden, and Herbert does not have those key players, even with Quentin Johnson has dropped so many passes this year. I don't think the Chargers win. I think the Bucks upset the Chargers here. And again, because I'm not going to pick the Chargers.
No, I agree with you 100% on what you were saying. Yeah, I can't go with the Chargers either, because that just helps us. And if we win, they lose, we go right up above them in the seedings right there. So I have to go with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, me too. Go Bucks. Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-3 at the Philadelphia Eagles 11-2. This is more than likely going to be America's game of the week. Surprisingly, it's a miracle that it wasn't bumped up to Sunday Night Football, either that or the Bills and Lions game. But this is going to be a tough matchup. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to give it to the Eagles, Libre, just for the simple fact that we do need Pittsburgh to lose. Russell Wilson might not have George Pickens. I think he's definitely not going to play. And pretty much the same scenario with Herbert and McConkey. When he doesn't have that one, yes, he has Freiermuth. Yes, he has Van Jefferson, and I forget the name of the other guys, but they're not George Pickens. So, and the same thing with the Steelers defense. It's very good. It's formidable, but the best way to beat any defense is wear them the hell out, and eventually they're going to break. So I'm going to pick the Eagles on this one.
I agree with you 100%. I think they already said that Pickens might be out again this weekend, and because of that hamstring. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. How do they say? Fly, Eagle, fly.
Fly, Eagle, fly, baby. Yeah. And then for the Sunday Night Football game, we have the Green Bay Packers at 9-4 against the Seattle Seahawks at 8-5. I will say, Jaden Reed, the fact that you gave me literally 0 points last week on fantasy and almost cost me a playoff berth really pisses me off. So he's going to be riding my bench this week. But the Packers, from what I read in one of the NFL Power Rankings today, they basically pretty much said that in order for Jordan Love to be successful, he has to get Jaden Reed involved in the game plan, because we saw what an offensive drive without him is, and it just doesn't work. So But Jordan Love has been playing a little bit better with his weapons. He hasn't been that careless with the ball. Seattle Seahawks, it's just been a team that's like been so up and down, you know. But I think that the Packers just have more on their side than Geno Smith. Geno Smith has been more prone to make mistakes than Jordan Love, even on the road. So, but I'm going to pick the Packers to win this one.
I agree 100%. I'm going with the Packers as well. Even though it's a Sunday night game, it's there in Seattle. I was in Seattle a couple years ago. It's the loudest outdoor stadium I've ever been to. But I feel like it's going to be Jordan Love is going to be able to handle it. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be another good nationally televised game where it's going to be close back and forth. But I think Jordan Love will be the player of the game.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost done here as we get towards the end of the show. The Chicago Bears at 4-9 at Minnesota Vikings 11-2. I'll just be quick with this. Minnesota Vikings, they're more Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson were just damn near unstoppable last week. Aaron Jones, those guys punished the Bears the first time around. The second time is not going to be any different. The Bears have only gotten worse since their first matchup. And especially the defense, I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. And this could be another big, probably another one-sided game in the favor of the Vikings.
I agree. Go Skull.
And then lastly, the Atlanta Falcons at 6-7 against the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-11. Raiders are officially eliminated from playoff contention. They were 2 weeks ago after their loss to Kansas City. Kirk Cousins is going to have to get a touchdown eventually, throw one, So I think this is going to be the getting right game for them. The Las Vegas Raiders more than likely lost Aiden O'Connell. I don't think that they're going to run with Desmond Ridder as their starting quarterback because he was just terrible. Just ask the Broncos. But if they are, they really have nothing to lose. So they'll probably move up in draft positioning. So I'm going to pick the Falcons in this one. I think they bounce back and get back into the win column.
I feel with the Raiders right now, they're in the let's get that number one pick. Let's get Shedeur. I feel like that's what they're going to do right now. It's not ethical for them to say, yes, we're tanking for Shedeur, whatever. But you could see it. They don't have that drive that they had at the end of last year when AP took over as the coach. But, I think they're just ready to get on. Even their fans, you see it all everywhere. So let's go Dirty Birds.
Yes, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this segment of Broncos Talk OT. For those of you that are still here with us, thank you so much for listening to Libre and I rant and rave about the game so far today. And with that, also, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for today's show. I'd like to thank my new co-host Bronco Libre for taking the time out of his day for joining us, and he will be with us going forward every single Wednesday here on Broncos Talk, and we will be joined soon with Ty, the fantasy guy. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get out of here, if you want to hit us up on Twitter, our Twitter handles are right here on the bottom. Mine is at 6for10 Mexican. You can hit up at Bronco Libre on Twitter. Please make sure you show your support for Orange and Blue Network, the network where we put our show on here. Please subscribe, share, comment, and like on all the shows we have here. There is something for everybody. Also, MHRT Network, which we are also live streaming at the same time. Subscribe, share, comment, and like on all of their network and TV shows. TV shows, yeah, because technically we're on somebody's TV, I'd like to imagine. For any business inquiries, you can email at broncostalk2020@gmail.com. If I'm forgetting anything, thanks to everybody in the chat today. D-Rock, Michael Carmeleni, I'm sorry, I know you have a podcast out. Please make sure you go find him on Twitter. His link is on his profile. It is a definite must listen. Please add it to your list. D-Rock, Ellis, the boss Jay Baki, I know I saw Jay in here earlier. Biggie, Bronco Rob, and David Yunkin. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on the show. Shout out to our sponsor, Dubby. And again, as I tell you guys every single time, please continue to support Broncos media out there, whether it's content, podcast, articles. Show your support. They're definitely very, very grateful for it. So for Bronco Libre, I've been Adon Diaz, and this has been Broncos Talk here on the Orange and Blue and MHRT networks. Ladies, It's time to get ready. It's time for the Broncos to go out there and win. But more important than anything, ladies, it is time for the Broncos to
get dangerous. Let's get.
I mistimed that so much, and I'm so sorry. It was better in practice. But ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get dangerous. And more important than that, it is time. Let's ride, baby. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, let's go, Broncos!